Welcome, dear friends, to Kardec Radio in this What is Spiritism program. We've been doing this series of studies on a book that was compiled by Kardec years after the publishing of the Spirit's book. As a wonderful educator, he opened the opportunity for us to have a summary of it all. But not only that, in a very insightful, educational, Socratic approach, he has questions and answers, dialogues between people who are interested in Spiritism, who are also hesitant to understand it, who are antagonizing it but want to talk with Kardec. Today, we're studying two other excerpts. It's about the prohibitions and a conversation between Kardec and the priest. And for that matter, we're going to talk here and we're live, so you feel free to ask your questions, make your comments right here. We may introduce your questions and comments during the program as well. You're quite welcome. And to have this study conversation, we have two people who have been studying about Spiritism for quite a while. One of them is Roberto Watanabe from Brazil and Rafael Caldas from the United Kingdom. So I'm going to introduce each one of them. As we say hi, let us welcome them together. Thank you, Roberto, for being here with us once again. How are you?
I'm fine, Vanessa. Thank you for the invitation. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Again. Roberto, for those who are watching us, if they want to communicate with us, you are the current president of the Spiritist Federation in São Paulo, right? Of São Paulo.
Right. Yes.
Yes, so it's wonderful. If they want to contact you, they can write either to kardecradio@gmail.com or find the organization in Brazil, in the city of São Paulo, and communicate with you as well. Correct?
Okay, correct.
Thank you. And we have here with us also Rafael Caldas. Rafael is also a host of a program at Kardec Radio, right, Rafael?
Hello, Vanessa. Hi, yes. Hi, Vanessa. Hi, Roberto. Super nice to be here. But yes, I am here from the UK. We do have our time to talk about mediumship every couple of weeks. And also I'm part of the SSL group in the UK and BUS, the British Federation. So also be happy to be a point of contact if anybody here in the UK would like to reach out.
Exactly. So the Spiritist Society of London is the main direction for Rafael. So, friends, we've been studying this book, and it's a phenomenal book for those who want to know more about Spiritism. But we are at a very critical moment in which Kardec has a conversation with the visitor who talks about Spiritism having powerful enemies. And it's so true. For me in the United States, I tell you that I can feel daily the encounters with people who understand it, but those who don't understand it sometimes may be quite, they put us aside. And it's a challenge. And he says, couldn't they prohibit its practice, those who are enemies of Spiritism, and its societies, and therefore stop its spread? Well, what do you guys think? Roberto, when you read this conversation and Kardec's explanation about the prohibitions, what came to your mind?
Well, I would say what I read in the book, based on what I read, Vanessa, basically what Kardec says is that the enemies of the Spiritism should not be concerned about the Spiritist doctrine, because if it is a passing fancy, as he says, it will disappear by itself. So don't need to worry about it. But if it is a reality, and it is because it's based on the reality of the spiritual realm, the spiritists, and this new, let's say, revelation that spiritism brings to us, then nothing will prohibit or make it disappear. So that's the first thing that Kardec commented on this question. The second one he says is that, as I have already mentioned, Spiritism is not the work of a person or a single person. It's not from him, Kardec,
No.
but it is the work of the spirits, and they manifest themselves all over around the world. So if you cannot avoid them to manifest. So Kardec commented that if you destroy, let's say, all the books, all the things that you have about the doctrine, the spiritist would reconstruct or build it again, would transmit again for us. So there is no way to prohibit or make it disappear. That's what I understood from
Yeah.
what Karen says.
Yes, and it's so interesting. For example, I live in an area
Mm,
nearby, there's a house, an
mm,
enormous house, and it's a house of a psychic person. So they have a big sign,
mm,
psychic,
mm,
and it's a major road around. People don't do a thing.
mm,
People like, okay, that's how it is what it is. It's so interesting because sometimes it's quite paradoxical. For example, in the United States, we talk about the freedom of religion, so people won't come across and discriminate, but they may do it in subtle ways. I remember at the University of Maryland how many times nobody discriminated me. People subtly asked me questions that would pertain to the topic, and I understood it. I'll
mm,
never forget this time when I was interviewing a candidate for a faculty, and I was in the interviewing committee, and it was 9 a.m. So I brought her to the conference room. And before we sat down, this lady came to me and said, I know you're spiritist. I was taken aback. I'm like, it's 9 a.m. What are you
mm,
talking about? We're at the university. And I have never hidden anything, but I don't talk about it at university because it doesn't pertain to the realm of the university. So I looked at her and said, what do you mean? Oh, this morning when I was having a breakfast with the chairman, I asked him if he knew that you are a spiritist. And I said, okay, so what did he say? He doesn't even know what it is. So I looked at her, I understood her emotional blackmail. I looked at her in the eyes and I said, do you want to begin the interview now? I owe nothing to her. And I'm just sharing this because of the many experiences I've had in the US. You can tell that little by little, the more we advance it, we may find embracing arms and sometimes violent opposition, or even this kind of threats. So, Rafael, what comes to you as well? You live in the United Kingdom and Spiritism still is not widespread like in Brazil. When you read Kardec's dialogue with the visitor on the prohibitions and the resistances, does it sound familiar? Does it come close to what you live or not at all?
You know what? I thought it was an interesting point, especially from the British perspective, because spiritualism being so widespread in here. So you do have a lot of spiritualist churches, and I think it goes on to prove that when we are talking about Roberto talking about, it is the teachings from the spirits, and prohibiting it or removing the person who is talking about it won't take away a few things. You won't take away the knowledge. You won't take away the communication from the spirits, because it is part of nature. It's present everywhere, regardless of what you study or you believe. It's just there. And the third one is there will always be groups invested, interested, thinking, reflecting, questioning things. And out of that, truth will always come up. And I think there's a very strong point, which is what Spiritism brings is a better understanding of nature, how nature works, what's the law of nature. And that doesn't change. Talking about it, don't talking about it, believe it, don't believe it. It doesn't change the fact that the world is and works in the way it is. The universe works in the way it is. So you might prohibit, but you cannot stop what is just reality.
Exactly.
And I think seeing like how this pops up in different places, it's not about one religion, it's about its presence. It's like spiritualism has it, just like in church, you will have other examples and experiences in different ways of seeing things, but you end up feeding into, mediumship or understanding of future life, and so will be other religions.
It's interesting. And Roberto, in Brazil, I know it's a major spiritist country, though we have several different religions, mostly Christian. And I know the times are different, but do you still encounter resistances?
No, Vanessa, we do not encounter. We did in the past. For example, Chico Xavier, Kai Bashuto, all these guys from the 20th century, from the first half of the 20th century, they found this kind of resistance. But today, although we are only, according to the statistics, spiritists in Brazil are only 3% of the population.
Yeah.
But then one interesting thing is that 3% are declared they are spiritists, but we have lots of sympathizers. We consider that it may elevate this percentage to maybe 15%. And what we feel also is that the people are more and more accepting the idea of a reincarnation, which is a basic principle of Spiritism. And so we don't find this difficult today. We have here a problem of intolerance against the religion from Africa. They have hard times here. But Spiritism, we don't have such a difficulty today, unfortunately. And I see that in Europe or in the States, the situation is a little bit different, as I heard from you. Right?
Yes, yes. I mean, here in the US, people don't know much about spiritism, but I would say, like Rafael, spiritualism is somewhat known, but there are lots of prejudices, though people don't come across prejudiced in true evidence,
Mm.
but it's very subtle. And it's interesting that though many people may be Christian or have no religion, many of them have their psychics. It's very common practice in the US to
Mm.
visit psychics, to have psychics telling you what's going to happen during that year. But
Mm.
when it comes to something more formal, more organized, people don't know what to make of it. And if they know of it, they may not discriminate directly, but avoid socialization
Mm.
with you. And you can only perceive it over time, when they get to know of it, they go through the internet, they get to know, you know, like, for example, at my daughter's school, I never said anything. People know, they go through the internet, and then one day there was a discussion about religion, and Virginia that never said anything. But one of the girls knew that she was Christian without Virginia ever mentioning. So she assumed they were Christians based on, and they are Jewish in the case of this girl. So for other people, the majority of her friends have no religion whatsoever, which is a growing tendency in the new generations, especially this alpha generation, which is the latest one. They are less religious than the previous generations. So I think we have a very challenging time where people feel that they don't have a religion, but if you do, what is your religion? Is Spiritism a religion? They don't know what to make of it. So it's quite tricky. But anyhow, when Kardec says here that, I mean, he's very strong, summing up and saying Spiritism today is an assured fact because of his research. But to know of it, people need to read about it. And nowadays, people barely read anything because all they do is social media, right? I mean, less and less people are reading. More and more, they are just browsing through pictures and videos, pictures and videos, pictures and videos. Therefore, those who do not appreciate it must be prepared to see it all around them, even though they are perfectly free not to accept it. I mean, that's how he ends this dialogue. And I find it quite reassuring that Kardec is so confident that he gives us this confidence that no matter if people don't understand it yet, facts are facts. And my question to those who are watching us live or on demand is, do we feel confident about it? Because it's quite easy to be confident in a country where Spiritism is accepted. But what if you are in a country where people don't even understand what it is? I think Kardec can bring that reassurance. Don't you think so, Roberto and Rafael?
Rafael, would you like to comment?
Okay. Yeah, I can make a comment. I think it's reassuring, but I do see this with a couple of different eyes. I think one is the timing of it. We don't know the timing of it, and what exactly does he mean by that? Does he mean that right now? Is it in 2 generations? Is it in 5 generations? And I think because in reality, what he means is our intellectual progress evolves. And with that, the questioning, the reasoning, the searching for answers comes with it. Once that is there, the question, the doubts are there, people will go try to find the answers, and they're going to find it. Even if it's a small group here, a smaller group there, it's available. So am I confident? Yes. Do I expect a revolution?
No.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I think it's and I think it's I'm gonna say it again. Yes, it is a revolution, but it's a silent one.
Yeah.
It's a silent and subtle one.
Interesting.
If you think about what takes people to Spiritism in most cases is what is suffering. They go through something in their lives that makes them try to find some sort of a consolation, understanding. It's a quiet revolution.
Interesting, right, Roberto? Silent, subtle revolution.
Yeah, what I would like to comment on what you said, Vanessa, is that, well, in Brazil at least, we don't have any problem regarding prohibition or enemies of Spiritism. But we have a problem.
Mm.
And it raised to my mind when you mentioned the new generation.
Yeah.
we have a difficulty here in Brazil to attract new generation. So you see that the last research on Spiritism in Brazil, Spiritist average age was 53 years old. So uh, what, what about the future of Spiritism, right? So that's a problem for us. We needed to rethink about the way we convey our message. Maybe it's not does not attract the young people. So this is a problem that we have here. So,
You're right.
yeah.
So let's explore a little more,
Mm,
because nowadays science is very strong.
mm,
At Kardec's time, science was becoming more stronger and stronger. Religion and science were divorced
mm,
pretty much. And now, little by little, as science is so strong, we're trying to find a middle ground. But the new generation doesn't listen to religion anymore, just listens to science, if they do. And how can we possibly, sometimes I think, how can we possibly bring the new generation to this type of interest? What would be a strategy?
mm,
In our center, for example, in 2018, we did this international as we could possibly be at the time, youth weekend. And we compiled, the youth that was present compiled like an agreement for 10 years, an agreement about resolutions to be worked upon, strategies. And in our center, the Spirit Star of Virginia, we have had babies, toddlers, children, youth. We have all those activities to the point that they are center stage nowadays in our center. We focus more on them than on the adult public, though we have, you know, possibilities for the adult, but our main focus is for them. But then how do we do it? We also get them involved in the public meetings for adults, so they don't feel like it's us there and them here. They feel that they are part of it. So once a month, we have a family thing. We don't have separate meetings, educational ones for children and adults. We encourage everybody to bring it together, and we do a different type of meeting, shorter, in which we interactively involve the children, the youth, and the families. I'll give an example. We got a message from Humberto de Campos on disguised obsession. One of the message, we made a video. We presented to the children, youth, and the adults. So while the adults were working on this message, the children and youth had computers. They watched the same video, and they had to put together games, and we would select one of the games for parents to play, a quiz for parents. It's a quiz game for the parents. So they came to the adult room, and the parents had to scan the QR code, go through the game, and play the quiz that they put together. Some adults loved it, other adults were a little lost, but they could do it through their own phone. And it was an opportunity for the youth to learn about the content without noticing, because they had to formulate the game while the adults were actually going through a talk after the video. It was quite interesting, the experience, but it requires a lot more effort for sure. And the question is how much effort we want to put in. What I mean, it requires patience on all sides, because we all have to leave the comfort zone. Don't you think?
I love this example, though. I think it's sometimes we feel like we need to revolutionize. I'm stuck in this word, I think. Revolutionize things. But in reality, you're bringing people together to learn together in a way that engage them with what they used to do, what they used to use. It makes sense to them. There's going to be, for the youth and the kids and then the others. So I love this idea. I'm going to think about it. But this is what we should be trying, right? I think there is an aspect of a few aspects. There's an aspect of the relevance of the topic. How are we linking the teachings with nowadays relevant topics day to day that people are interested, that makes sense for them to discuss, that brings them, that helps them think about their lives now and everything that they are exposed to now. So it is this is a challenge that Roberto said as I think we're facing everywhere, not just Spiritism, by the way, but it's also what we need. We need to evolve. We need to rethink about the way we were doing things and how we're going to do them in the future. Otherwise, we're just replicating, just like any other religion, which is a good segue for the next chapter.
Yes, we still have our way of working is a lecture of 1 hour. If it's a course, a class of 2 hours, and the guy remain there, sitting silent, just listening to what the teacher, let's say, is saying. And the young generation does not want to face that, right? They want interaction like what you did, Vanessa. Is that what they want, right? And the less time of a presentation and the participation. We have some in the area of the childhood, the young people here in FASP. We introduced a philosophy course for the young people, but where they discuss problems which they go through in their day-to-day lives. So that is an experience that we are doing here, and we hope this will have a better fruits from our work here. But we must rethink, right, the way we do
It's
work.
not easy, it's not
Yeah.
simple. And I've observed in our
Mm,
center that when we involve electronics,
mm,
it's very exciting.
yeah.
So there are online uh, programs free of charge where people can go in and through games they can create quizzes, etc. It's very interesting. The children love it. No matter the topic, like we taught the 10 laws using the method and they loved it. We didn't need to teach them.
Mm,
We formulated games and they had to go through the games to learn.
mm,
And when they had also to create games with content, they were truly engaged. And
mm,
as Rafael said, when we bring topics that pertain to their um, reality. So, for example, now it's summertime because people want shorter meetings because they want to be out and about. So, what did we do for the children and youth? There is a program that is also in Portuguese, it's in many languages. It's named Superbook. It's on online, it's on YouTube, and it's all about the teachings in the Bible. But they have one Superbook show in all languages in which they have teens doing very short 5, sometimes 3 to 10 minutes, where they bring a scenario of what happened and it's very funny. They talk about it, etc. And they love it when we show it to them. And after that, we do activities. They loved. There was a time they watched about, should we avenge somebody or not? So they bring Bible verses, but they talk about what happens in school, a scenario that the children find familiar. And then they had, after watching it, they had to role play. And they loved it. They really felt engaged. I'm not going to say in the long run, when they go through the most difficult part, which is when they are in high school, or especially college, I'm not so sure if they're going to be able to be truly engaged, but at least the seeds will be there. We have children in our centers that were there before they were born, throughout their babyhood, toddlerhood. Now they are teens, and only God knows when they go to college if they're going to continue. But at least the seed is there. Before we begin the meeting, two of the kids read messages, short messages, to prepare the public for the prayer, so they feel part of the meeting as well. They are not like outcasts. I think that helps, and they love being there. I'm not going to say everybody, but majority of them really engages. But it takes a collective effort from the adults to be kind and patient and tolerant, and also encouraging to them. Food for thought, right, friends? We are learning, we're trying to find a way to trying many different things.
Yeah, very interesting. And I think you have an important issue in the, for example, in the United States, Vanessa, which is your children to be spiritist, and then it will be the next generation that is integrated in the culture of the country, and maybe they can get more
Yeah,
adherence to spiritualism than others. That's
yeah.
their culture, right?
I,
So
I believe in that. I believe they will take a step if we adults right now do it in their language.
yeah.
Because I remember 26 years ago when I was, you know, in my youthful years,
Mm.
many people came to me and said, "Oh, the children will do it." Well, the children are 26 and I don't see anybody. Why? Because the parents were doing Portuguese. And all the people that I know in the United States who saw parents doing it in Portuguese, they say, "Oh, it's my parents' religion. It's something from Brazil."
Mm.
But the ones that see it in English, they take it. For example, my daughter, how often she participates in the planning meetings and she gives her contributions. She says, "Oh, I think we should do this way or that way." And she participates, she feels part of it. So probably when they grow older, they're not going to say, "Oh, this is something that comes from Brazil." No, because they see the American flag in the center. They see everybody speaking in English, people from different nationalities coming in, Americans, non-Americans, and majority of the center is American already. And people feel like it's part of their life. So I feel like if they take it as part of their lives in their language, more likely they will take another step. Probably.
Yeah. I think to link to Kardec's final word, um, it is the work of the Spirit, but if it's with us now, it's our responsibility to just keep moving it forward. And there's no there's no issue, there's nothing, there's no shaming trying new things and you realize, look, this is not working, let's try something else. I think sometimes you get a bit caught up in it needs, it needs to be, there's such a weight to it and so on, it should be serious. And it is serious and it is responsible, but trying new things, reassessing it, and in the way that will bring more people in, that's how we're going to keep it alive and we're going to keep it going. um, but it's the work of the spirits that we need to just keep pushing.
I agree. The other day we were doing a meeting online with our friends, the board of directors, and there was a fly around here. And I said, what's the spiritual meaning of a fly? It's persistent. So we have to be as persistent as a fly. Talking about this persistence, the rest of this chapter is a whole dialogue between Kardec and the priest. It's very extensive. So when you guys read this part, before I bring some highlights, what are your main highlights in that dialogue between Kardec and the priest regarding Spiritism? Would you like to start it, Roberto?
Well, one interesting thing, Vanessa, that I realized is that in the beginning, in the first question of the priest to Kardec, Kardec started by saying, well, I'm not interested in those who have a religion and are satisfied with that. Spiritism is looking for disbelievers to someone who doesn't believe in nothing. But what is interesting, that was the situation in his time. But today, the situation is completely different because in Brazil, for example, most of those 3% that I mentioned, which is a small percentage of the population, but if you look at the 3%, I would say that 90% came from the Catholic religion, right? So it's something. This is I realized of this and found it very interesting because it's totally different from Kardec's time, right? So I would say that most of the question that he is answering here in this book um, represents a situation that he was facing at his day, where Spiritism that he brought to light uh, found many opponents, either from the dogmatic religion or from the, let's say, materialistic science or atheists. But today the situation is very different. I myself came from the Catholic religion, so this is something interesting that happened in Brazil. And what is interesting is that we don't have spiritists coming from the Protestant religion because they have another vision, right, this thing that Kardec talks about here in this book, where dogmatic religion understands that Spiritism, deals with the demons, or like you said in the beginning, the Protestant religion still thinking about like that. So that's why we don't have any adherence from them. But from Catholic, we have, most of the people come from this religion. So it's totally different, right, from Kardec's time. So in some way, the concern of the priest here was realized because, like Kardec said, they felt a little bit threatened by this new religion, right? So, and that in some way was accomplished, at least here in Brazil.
Quite interesting. Quite interesting. Rafael, what do you think? In this dialogue, I know it's extensive. There are so many points to address.
I will.
Watch your eyes, first and foremost.
I will try to take the thread, the way I try to summarize in my mind, and I have to say that this dialogue is a dialogue to be read multiple times, because the first time I read a few times. The first time I read, it was very clear that there was a moment in time, and what the priest was symbolizing and what was happening at that moment in terms of practical terms, with a new religion being introduced against another religion that was already there. So I could see the rivalry as an institutionalized faith, and so I could see that very clearly what Kardec was doing, who he was talking to. But then I read a second time, and I realized that the priest nowadays can be a different role, can be a different person. It's so funny that we were talking about the future of Spiritism and how to engage with new generations and so on. Aren't we also stuck? Yeah, Roberto was talking about the usual format, the format that we know. It's like 1 hour lecture, 1 hour lecture, 1 hour lecture. Aren't we stuck in one way of doing Spiritism that sometimes it keeps us from, oh, but wait a minute. What is new? What should be coming new from Spiritism?
Yeah.
All of the essence is there, but what should be coming new? So I think there's an element there that Spiritism might also become the priest stuck in its own ways, let's say. But that's not a threat, actually. This is something that comes to my mind now as we were talking about the other one. For me, I think that if I were to take one thing is, Roberto, I think, led with the main idea, which is Spiritism is not here to replace religion. Spiritism is here to bring another step forward. Reasoning, thinking, questioning is a philosophical approach to things that is going to allow people to move from a system of beliefs, pure beliefs, to a system of understanding. But that is up to every single person. If for you the belief system is enough, then my friend, go be happy, go be good, go live your life according to what you believe, looking to improve yourself. Now, if the questions come to you, if you see things that you don't agree, if there are questions that are not answered, then Spiritism brings different tools to guide your journey and your reasoning. So I think for me, that was the thing that kind of took out of it, which is Spiritism is not attacking or is against religion. Spiritism is adding to it. And it doesn't ask you to leave that one or to be against or criticize the other one. No. It respects whatever belief you have. That was it.
Interesting. I want to bring a comment by our friend Rita Di Cassia. She used to be here in Atlanta, Georgia, and she touches a topic that is quite interesting. Protestants absolutely do not accept any talk about spiritualism. And I ask why they say that spiritualism is linked to evil spirits. It's so true, because in the United States is mostly Protestant, especially evangelical. They're very strong. In the US, if you say you're Christian, I will never forget when I moved to the US 26 years ago. People ask me, what religion is yours? And I wouldn't say Spiritism, because I don't think it's per se a religion. It's another topic. But I said, I'm Christian. And you say, oh, do you believe in the Virgin Mary? Do you believe in the Savior? And I said, no, that's not what I mean by being Christian. I follow Jesus' teachings. That's all it is. But in the US, there is this fundamentalist mindset, which we respect. For example, The Chosen, the series by the Protestant Dallas Jenkins. The director is evangelical. The main actor is the one that plays Jesus is Catholic. It's beautiful what they are trying to do, come across in this partnership. But there was a time at the end of season 3, we sent them a group of Spiritist books in English. The Good News, 2,000 years ago, Paul and Stephen, etc. And said, since you're planning on more, I think what you're doing matches somewhat the way we see it, the emotional body language of the Christ. This was before season 4. We sent this message throughout all of their social media. We sent it by mail to their thing. They never replied. And I remember specifically, as Rita de Cassia said, two experiences with Protestants in the United States. It's shocking how resistant they are. They are quite resistant even to talk about it. So if you go to the Bible, there are several versions, but there are versions in which they inserted the name Spiritism. But Spiritism is a new word created by Kardec in 1857, and the Bible was written way before it. So how can accept that Spiritism is prohibited? It's the devil because it's in the Bible if this word was created by Kardec in 1857. So there's a lot of, as we said before in different programs, people are not willing to discuss. And what does Kardec do with those people? We don't talk to them. We just leave them alone. They don't want to talk about it, neither do we. We only talk to the people who are willing to talk about it. If they are willing to exchange, we exchange. They are not, then we don't. Right? What would you guys like to comment on Rita de Cassia's take?
Well, I would say that this thinking that spiritualism is linked to evil, only to evil spirits, is a matter of opinion, simple opinion, and also some prejudice here that goes back to Moses' prohibition. Moses, according to the Genesis, or according to the Bible, prohibited the evocation of the spirits. And from that fact that we have in the Bible, people concluded that, well, if this prohibition is based on the fact that the spirits that we evoke are all evil spirits, are all demons. And Kardec talks about that here in the book, right? Because he says, well, but what about those spirits that are evoked and incentivize us to worship God, to do only good, well, to do charity, to respect our neighbor. And Kardec said, well, such an evil spirit would be a fool because it is working against what they should do, right? So it means that communication with the spirit is not with evil spirit. Of course, there are evil spirits, but also high order spirits. So both of them. So that's why I say that it's a kind of opinion. Right? I like it. Spiritism shows with the facts what it defends, its principle, right? So that's a different thing. But if you like also Rafael said, well, but if people doesn't want to talk, doesn't want to dialogue, that's okay. As far as Kardec says, as far as their belief, even if it's based on opinion or blind faith, keeps them from doing evil things, or by the other hand, incentive them to doing good. That's okay, right? So, like you said, Vanessa, let them go their way. We will go our way, right? So, I would say that.
Exactly. Rafael.
A few things come. I always have a few things, right? So, what comes to my mind is, I think, first of all, I like a lot what you said, Vanessa, about Kardec's recommendation is, look, if you want to open an honest conversation, please come and let's talk. If not, that's okay. Go your way. I go my way. I'm here if you want. I'm here if you need. Or here the books. Go read. That's another thing that he likes to say a lot. Go read the books. They want to discuss. Go read the books, and then we can discuss. So I think that's probably a good way of starting. So I like that a lot. Then around evil spirits, I think I'm a big fan of Kardec because of how he presents his argument. And the reasoning that comes behind every point is so clear and so strong. A lot of it comes from like the idea, the association that some religions might have of spiritism and evil spirits and so on, comes from mediumship, comes from receiving communications, inspiration, etc. And it doesn't deny the possibility of communications, right? Because most religions will accept in one way or another. Now, let's think about that. If communication is possible, if God is perfect, why would only be allowed by God that evil spirits communicate? How does that make sense? How does that make him good, infinitely good and perfect? Communication is possible. All sorts of spirits are able to communicate. So on its own, there's already questions, there's already things that would position us in a way that we can question why would that be the case. Now, there is a lot of energy, unfortunately, and we see this across all religions. There's a lot of energy that we put forward antagonizing different beliefs, when in reality, Kardec brings the conclusion of this, which is amazing. He brings a very important point, which is all religions are, in theory, at the core, trying to bring people into understanding that there is an afterlife, that there is good that we should be working towards, and etc. Even if our belief systems are different, religions as a whole, in the core, they should be, in reality, trying to enlighten people. In theory, they should be together against materialism, above anything else, first and foremost, and not antagonizing one another. So, for me, that's so. It makes so much sense. And again, it comes back to the point of when we from one religion go and analyze another one, usually we go to criticize, oh, you believe this, I believe this, instead of looking for what are the true meaningful commonalities that we have. What is the outcome that you expect from a human being? What is the good that you're trying to bring out from people? That is what should be connecting us. So we got lost into focusing on this difference. And in reality, that's not what matters.
Yes, you're right. A lot of food for thought. And Rafael, when you made a comment about our current approach, I agree with you. We need to change. I want to share that in our center, we have already started changing. So we are doing 30-minute talks followed by the passes. And we see that that is very welcoming. On us, it requires a lot more objectiveness to the point, but at the same time, the attention span of people fits quite well in those 30 minutes. So between the prayer, the whole reflection, and if people really want to study, that's another day. So for the general public, it's no longer an hour in our center, because we see that people, because of the pandemic and of social media, the exposure to social media and the pandemic has shortened even the adults' capacity of attention, concentration. So we have shortened to 30 minutes. And it has been a good experience so far. So I agree with you. We needed to reinvent the approach. The message is the same, but the approach in order to share these teachings that are so consoling, illuminating, and go places. Otherwise, we become orthodox, right? It has to be this way for millennia. It is this way and only this way. So it becomes, again, the topic is the same. Is our flexibility and the openness to be innovative in the approach, not the message, because the message doesn't change, but the approach. And I remember at the university, all of our faculty meetings were, before the pandemic, were always around what can we do to reach out to this new generation? What can we do more digital, more this than that? And I remember students coming to me and saying, when I miss the lecture, I go on demand, I put in 2 times the speed, and I quickly browse through the content. So after the pandemic, more and more people are working remotely. More and more people are studying remotely. So what about us? I'm not saying we should go only online, but it's the format. Roberto, now we have to wrap up. It's such a good conversation here, but we hope we have inspired people, as Rafael said, to read time and again. Roberto, what would you like to say as your final comments to those who are watching us?
Well, I would say that we cover on the superficial, right?
Yes,
This part of the
yes,
book, unfortunately, because there are 20 questions here from the priest, well, 19 from the priest, one from a free thinker. But I think it was very interesting, the discussion. And well, I would like to thank you again, Vanessa, for the invitation and for everybody that was with us, were with us today. And I'm going to see you again on the beginning of July, right?
yes. Thank you so much, Roberto. And I agree with you. It was just superficial, especially about the priest,
Yeah.
but we hope people can read it, and you can send your comments, your questions, and we'll be here to bridge it up in the next program. Rafael, what about you? Lupe
Oh,
wants to speak too.
I definitely want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Um, uh, just the one last thing that I would bring as an idea to close is this is the conversation with the priest, right? So let's bring that to the context of reaching out and talking to somebody who already believes, has a religion, believes in Christ, is a spiritist. What did Christ say? Christ said that he could not tell us everything. We were not prepared. So every time something new comes under the pretext of Christ, under the pretext of goodness, of religion, of faith, whatever it is, let's open our eyes, open our ears. Let's observe. Let's hear. Let's not react immediately. Let's sleep on it. Let's think about it, and then come back, and then realize, because not everything could have been explained when he came. So maybe there are new things that can be explained now. So let's keep that in mind. Not everything is already exposed and shared and acknowledged.
Yeah, yeah,
So
right. Keep
thank
an
you so
open
much.
mind. Thank you. It's so good to have you, Roberto and Rafael, here with us. And I know it's just a teaser for those who are with us that they read it. Read it in your phone. That it's in my phone. Look, it's so interesting to be able to sit down, browse through these books. I don't think Kardec ever imagined that we would be reading this in an electronic format. He doesn't even know, he didn't even know it could exist. So, as we advance, the teachings are coming in so many ways and shapes. For those who are watching us, Thank you. We had so many people coming in and out throughout all of our channels, including Kardec Radio's Instagram. And we want to thank you. Thank you, Gabriel Inácio. Thank you, Rita de Castro, and so many friends who also may be watching again when we are going to restream this at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you again, friends, for this opportunity. We hope to see you not only tonight, but next week in another program of What is Spiritism. Thank you, Rafael and Roberto.
Thank you.
Bye bye, friends.